Good evening, folks, and welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is BJ, and tonight we're going to talk about more of my travel episodes around the world. I think I'm going to focus tonight on China. So, a few years back, I think it was 2017, I had a business trip to China, and it was in a city called Guangzhou, China. And if I remember correctly, Guangzhou, China has over 20 million residents and is much larger than the city of New York, land-wise and obviously people-wise. So we went to the city. I flew in. It was crazy because I had to fly into the main city, which I think is Beijing, which is like one of their big capital cities. And apparently in Beijing, they have a wind problem. It's a windy area. And if the wind goes over a certain miles per hour or kilometers per hour, then the air traffic control stops all flights. And that's what happened. So I arrived in Beijing on time. I think I was coming from somewhere in Europe. I don't remember exactly. That was one of those world tour trips. And I got into China on time, got to Beijing, sat and waited for the plane, waited. And they eventually made an announcement that all flights were being delayed. So I think we ended up being delayed by about 3 to 4 hours. By the time I got on the flight and then from Beijing to Guangzhou, I think it was around midnight or a little bit after midnight. And I arrived, I got my luggage, and as usual, I came out and there was a driver waiting for me. Most of my clients would have a driver waiting for me, like 90% of them would have a driver waiting. Every now and then I had to take a taxi or an Uber, but majority of the times they had a driver waiting. So the guy was there with the sign. There were two of them. One guy was the driver who only spoke Chinese, and the other guy was one of the valets or concierge guys from the hotel, and they sent him along because he spoke English. So he said, "Oh, Mr. Tillman, we've been monitoring your flight, and we've been here for hours waiting, but we weren't going to leave because we knew you would be here eventually." And so I was grateful that they waited because it was pitch dark out. So we get into this nice van and we're headed towards the hotel, back towards the city. And like most cities, the airport was a good distance outside of the city. I'd say 30 to 40 minutes outside the city. So we're riding along and I'm seeing all these huge skyscrapers, right? But it was like pitch black. So apparently at night, they turn out all the power. I don't know if the government does it or if all the citizens go to bed at the same time. It was bizarre. There were miles and miles and miles of these huge skyscrapers. And I'm going to try to edit some footage in for you. I have a new video editing software. So if I can figure it out tonight, I'm going to put in some video and photos so you can see what I'm talking about so you won't think I'm crazy, right? Never seen anything like this. This makes Dubai and New York look like small potatoes when you talk about the sheer number of huge skyscrapers they have. And these are condos and apartment buildings where people live because they had just have 20 million people to house. So it's late. We're headed to the hotel. It's pitch black. We get there. I felt bad again because they had one lady who had to stay at the front desk to wait for me to check me in. And then the concierge guy, he had the key. They took me up to my room. Very nice room, by the way. I'm trying to remember the name of the hotel. I think it was, I'll have to look it up. But the strange thing that I remember is in the US, that chain is not considered luxury. It's sort of a mid-range hotel. But in Guangzhou, China, that hotel was 5 stars. And I mean serious 5 stars. When I got to the room, I was like, whoa, incredible room, amazing. I still have some pins I got from there. They were made from bamboo wood. Anyway, checked in, got a decent night's sleep, had to get up around 7 the next morning, get ready to head into some conferences and do some trainings and things like that. And then in the afternoon, my colleagues and I went out and did some sightseeing around the city after we were done with work. Fortunately for us, one of our colleagues was Chinese and actually lived in Guangzhou. So he was fluent in, I think it was Mandarin, and he took us around and showed us all his favorite places. We went to a great dim sum restaurant. It was like 3 stories high. And when you enter on the first floor, it's all fresh seafood, living. Apparently, in this particular region or province of China, they have this sort of thought process that if they won't bring you a dead seafood animal, right? So you have to go to the tank, you choose your live seafood animal, and then they prepare it. So then they have to kill it in front of you. Apparently it's bad luck if the chef chooses your fish or crab or lobster for you and kills it. You have to choose your crab, and then you have to watch them kill it. Insane. I've got tons of pictures too of the tanks and all the animals. You'll love to see that. I had never seen anything like that in my life. It was basically like a aquamarine zoo, but it was the place where you choose your food. Now, interestingly enough, I have an allergy to shellfish, so I couldn't eat any of that. But my friends all chose their different things, fish and different seafood dishes. They had to watch the chef chop the head off or whatever the case was. And then we took the stairs up to the dining room. And it was a huge dining room. And we went to this dining room, had a table. I think there were 5 of us maybe. And we sat. And then my Chinese colleague took me over to the buffet line, and he spoke to the chef there. And at the buffet line, he told him, I eat chicken, I eat beef, things like that. So they got me some dishes that were chicken and beef. And there were these beautiful little pastries with chicken inside and beef and vegetables. And we don't get anything like that here at our Chinese American restaurants. Trust me. This stuff they serve us here is highly Americanized. The average Chinese person, at least in this part of China, they would not eat that, right? So we dined there, and it was good. So we left there, went back and walked around the city, and we found this place where there were a whole street of tailors, and they would have suits made for you in 3 to 4 days, something like that. Unfortunately, we were only there for a few days and wouldn't have had enough time to stay for them to finish the suit. We asked if they would ship them, and they said no, they didn't ship to the States. You would need to be there to pick it up because they also wanted to do a final fitting in person. So that didn't work out for us. But anyway, went back to the hotel. I think that was our lunch that day, or let's say it was a early afternoon snack. That evening, we were at the hotel, met up with my colleagues again, and one of my American colleagues decided he was going to eat the raw oysters from the from the buffet line at the hotel. Granted, it's an upscale hotel, but I just know from experience, it doesn't matter where you are. There's certain things you probably shouldn't eat, especially if it's sitting out, right? And you're on a business trip in a foreign country. My colleague goes right over to the oysters. I remember I was in the line with him, and I looked at them, and I just said to myself that those don't even look good. I think he had 2 of them, and, he took them and he did the whole, swallowed them down. Later that night, he calls me, and he had the bubble guts. And he says, listen, I'm not going to be able to do the presentation tomorrow morning that I was scheduled to do. I'm going to need you to do my presentation. Mind you, in this team, we all presented on different types of medical devices and different software. So we kind of had our own specialties. I didn't specialize in the type of software that he worked with or the type of medical device. So he hands me this huge manual, right? I had to take it to my room, read it, go through his PowerPoint presentation, and be ready the next morning to present to a room of like 100 Chinese researchers. So I did that. Of course, it was in English, and all the Chinese audience was spoken English. And it went okay, because afterwards, the next evening, we went to dinner with the senior director from the pharmaceutical company, and she said to me that the Chinese host was very impressed with my presentation. I said to myself, if only they knew I literally had to learn all that stuff on the fly in like 3-4 hours that night. But it all worked out. So let me tell you, that was an interesting trip. Also, because I'm 6'2" and over 200 pounds, we're walking around, and my colleague was probably 5'10", over 200 pounds. We're walking around looking for clothes and stuff. Nothing in the shops would even remotely fit us. I remember walking into stores and they would look up at us and then they would just start shaking their head like, no, there's nothing here for you, buddy. So, it was a great experience. I enjoyed it. Another interesting thing I didn't get to say, when I first deplaned in Guangzhou, I get off the plane, right? I'm walking down the long hallway to get to, immigration to show my passport. The first billboard I saw, huge life-size billboard, was of Steph Curry promoting a Chinese phone brand. I was like, what? I think it was like Huawei or something like that. I don't remember the exact name. And then that day when we were shopping, I told you we were shopping and there were no clothes to fit us because we were American giants compared to these people. So I went into a sneaker store and they had a life-size cutout of Klay Thompson, formerly of the Golden State Warriors, now with the Dallas Mavericks. And he's had a shoe line, a signature shoe with this Chinese company called Anta. And in the sneaker store, they had the life-size cutout of Klay Thompson. And he's I think 6'4", 6'5" in real life. And I went and asked, I wear a size 13 American. So they were like, no, we don't have anything close to that, sir. The average person in Guangzhou was probably somewhere between 5'4" and 5'7", right? Now, the other thing, before I wrap this video up, the other thing that really was eerie to me is that with 20 million people, it was the quietest major city I've ever been in. And even when the people were walking down the sidewalks in the morning, because we could see them from the breakfast hall in the hotel where we would have the breakfast room, you could see down into the street. Everyone walked in single file. It was crazy. So, very interesting. And then I remember the driver that brought me from the airport that night, he said that there are very severe penalties if you go over the speed limit. So the speed limit from the hotel to the airport, the airport to the hotel was something like 40 miles per hour. And even though it was around midnight and no one else was on the street, the guy told me, I'm sorry, sir, we cannot go any faster. If they were to stop us, it would be a serious penalty for us and for the hotel. I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, China was amazing. I think everyone should go. Guangzhou may not be the city for most people to go to. I think Shanghai is where most people should go because they have all the space age looking buildings and all the amazing tourist attractions. So yeah, if you get a chance, go to China. I'm going to work on editing this video and try to get some pictures and footage from China into this video for you. So thanks for watching. Have a great evening. I'll be back on Wednesday with another episode. And remember, if you like what you saw and heard tonight, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Tell your friends about me. I'm going to be doing this travel series for a while, and then we're going to switch it up. As we get closer to the presidential election, I'm going to jump into that, and then we're going to talk about other issues, societal issues, spiritual issues, you name it, I'm going to cover it. So, thanks again. Have a great night. Peace.